Now we tackle about Act of Declaration of the Philippines Independent. Uh, Now I know that the Declaration of Independence is the document in which Filipino revolutionary force led by the General Emilio Aguinaldo, later to become the Philippines' first Republican president. He declared the Philippines' sovereignty and independence from Spanish and colonial rule after the latter was defeated by the Battle of Manila Bay. The important of Act of Declaration of the Philippines Independent is also the first public performance of the Philippine national anthem and the first republic display of the Philippine flag, the proclamation of Philippine independence on June 12, 1898. According to Macapagal Arroyo, provided a colonial Asia with the first free in United Nations that there had been previous Asian revolution. We know that the Declaration of Philippines is the document in which Filipino revolutionary, firstly by General Emilio Aguinaldo, or the later to become the Philippines' first Republican president, he declared the Philippines sovereignty and independence from the Spanish colonial rule after the later was defeated at the Battle of Manila Bay. And the main content of the Philippine independence is the declaration listed a number of grave grievance against the Spanish government. Dating back to the arrival of explorer Ferdinand Magellan in 1521 and confers upon our famous dictator Don Emilio Aguinaldo all the power necessary to enable him to discharge the duties of government, including the prerogatives of granting the prerogative and two main purpose of the Philippines independence is make up plans objectives where to unite troops, acquire foreign allies, and announcement the formation of the new country. The major goal of the declaration, as stated in the first sentence, is to justify colonial right to revolution. And now, I also tackle about 1899 Constitution of Republic of the Philippines, or Malolos Convention. We know that the first Philippine Republic, which lasted from 1899 to 1901, created and enacted the Malolos Constitution, the Philippine first Constitution, the first Republican Constitution in Asia in 1899. The Philippines was governed by the laws of United States of America during the American occupation, and Aguinaldo issued the Malolos Constitution, which is used today. The Malolos Constitution is the first important document issued by the people's representatives in Philippines. It is founded on democratic values that have their origin in Americans while being a Filipino. Uh, you know that being Filipino, we need to know that article so that where we go in the Philippines, we know then so that we don't lose our rights. And the main point, the Malolo Convention, is to establish a republican democratic government with three branches: the executive, legislative, and judicial. It demanded that the church state be kept separate, and we need to know the Philippines Constitution because the Constitution is founded on key concept that contribute to ensure people sovereignty and government. In the Article of Confederation were not working, therefore the Constitution imposed those boundaries to citizens knew that their government is permitted to do and what is not authorized to do in the political constitution. This is the document, the 1899. The political constitution is written in Spanish, which was the Philippine official language at the time. It consists of 111 articles grouped into 14 titles, with 8 more articles containing a transitory provision and one the unburned supplementary items. So I encourage every Filipino to know the what article all about, because article one of the tools that we need to improve so that we avoid vandalism. Now we tackle about uh, Treaty of Peace between the United States of America and the in the Kingdom of Spain, or Treaty of Paris. As a student criminology, we need to know about the peace between the United States of America and the Kingdom Spain. Like we know, I know that the Treaty of Paris was signed in Paris on December 10, 1898 between the United States of America and the Kingdom of Spain. This is a proclamation Spain relinquished all claims to the Cuba's sovereignty and the title, and learn from this topic that we need to improve ourselves through and educate and be a good citizen, because being a good people, that is a one way to become a peace and unite. And Spain is so important to United States because they collaborate closely in variety of global issues such as the forestry and international collaboration, peace and security, and economic growth. Spain is a critical ally, partner, and friend of the United States, from supporting mutual economic perspective to combating ICL and educating violence, extremism. Being a peace on both sides is important because it means that the two groups can be united even if they are different race or have a different beliefs. In the article, our agreement is also important that they can unite to also avoid a fight like just experience in my study. If your group does not unite, there may not be a good outcome. So if there is no role of everyone, there may be some of you who do not agree and they have a law with you in your group. For example, if you do not participate in the group, they will not join their group. But if you want to participate, there is a good chance that you will join. So there is so no one and who hopes in this group. This topic is great example studying criminology and for people who can't unite. The fourth is the Jose Rizal retraction controversy. We know that Jose Rizal claimed uh, retraction, which include all about his reversion to the Catholic faith and all other topics related to it, such as his marriage to Josephine Bracken, was one of the most intriguing of the all Jose Rizal, one of the heroes of the Philippines that he gave his life on his country in the main debate in the retraction letter of Dr. Serzal. Its time, the debate was no longer about whether Rizal had a retract or not. Question was with or not the Will recovered retraction document was authentic. Despite this, the paper did not dispose objection regarding the Rizal retraction, as the duties had hope in this letter in affecting the Catholic, because a Catholic priest entered the continuous retraction letter written by Rizal's son before his execution in 1935 claimed the retracted in his written that contradicted the Catholic faith. Rizal's public image in the Philippines has been unaffected by this retraction, and Dr. Rizal no have a reaction because they would not have been executed and he had recanted Rizal. However, did not withdraw the sentence was executed, he would have served as an example for the friar's cause and would have received a proper Christian burial rather than the being burned outside Taco Cemetery like a dead dog. So Jose Rizal accepted his death to liberate the Philippines. He requested the farrier was to bury him properly because Jose Rizal deserved to bury him properly rather than just leaving his body like a dead dog. So the history of Dr. Jose Rizal, one of the good motivation and good example for every person, because Dr. Jose Rizal through that in exchange for his life, many human lives could be free from the hands of the Spaniard. The fifth one is conviction between the United States of America. In the greater version, delimiting the boundary between the Philippines archipelago and the state of North Borneo in 1930. So, Mark portion of these charts indicating the Treaty of Paris lines were attached to the same treaty and made of part of on 2 January 1930 when the United States and the United Kingdom signed a convention delimiting the boundary between the Philippine archipelago and the state of North Borneo or Radio 1974 and the agreement between US and British Hidajay Treaty in November 1794 was peace treaty between the United States and the United Kingdom. The built-in foundation in which America could construct a strong national economy and ensured its commercial prosperity in. Now I know that the all islands to the north and east of the sideline, as well as any islands, are rocks traversed by the same line, shall be a part of the Philippine archipelago, while all the islands, the south of west and side line shall be part of state of North Borneo. That is Article 3 in United States State with a version convention of 1930 was an agreement between the government of the United Kingdom and the United States to definitely demarcate the border between North Borneo then the British territory the Philippine archipelago. Now, we tackle about conspiracy against the Spaniard. Conspiracy Act of 1587, also known as Conspiracy of the Lacans, was a revolt organized by Tagalog lords known as Maginoos, commanded by Don Agustin de Legazpi of Tondo and his cousin Martin Pangan, to overthrow the Spanish, and the conspiracy of the Maharlikas is to conspiracy of 1587 to 1588, also known as the Revolt of the Lacans or the Tondo Conspiracy, was a plot against Spanish colonial control in Philippines by Tagalog and Kapampangan noblemen or datos of Manila and certain village in Bulacan, Pampanga Spaniard and uprising because Spanish troops fought the Ilocanos primarily using Kapampangan warriors. The battles of the Silang uprising are the prime illustration of divide at Empera. The Ilocanos were eventually defeated. The insurrection came to end. Spanish eviction executed Cabral Silang in Vigan. Next is the introduction of the 1896 Philippine Revolution. Even the Filipino nationalists revolt against Spanish sovereignty, which had ruled in the Philippines since the 16th century, and the fall of 1896 and 1896 revolution, led by Emilio Aguinaldo in 1869 to 1964, led by Filipino to accept war with Spain in unexpected conflict with the United States in the Philippine Revolution, Philippines, 1896 to 98 Filipino Independence uprising that highlighted the weakness of Spanish administration but failed to expel Spaniards from the islands. After more than 30 years of Spanish colonial control, the length of year is more than 300 years, but they still can't drive the Spaniards out of the islands. That's how brave the Spaniards are, even if they don't take them because of the courage of the Filipino. They did not just use the Spaniard, but they fought for freedom for more than 300 years. So it is not just about being a warrior, because you will give yourself to being a warrior for your family throughout the Philippines, because the Philippine Revolution instilled in a Filipino great feeling of a nationality. The revolution goal was to colonials, and this goal brought a from all walks of life together. The revolution began in 1896 and was primarily directed against the Spanish government. Next is the Andres Bonifacio letter to Emilio Jacinto in April 16, 1879. During the annual Leonberry benefit, the Action for the Asian Culture Center or ACC Manila on March 3, explosive letters written by Andres Bonifacio to Emilio Jacinto about the controversial Tijeros Convention that deposed the Katipunan founder in 1897 and lead to his accession will be action of when Bonifacio wrote the letters Emilia Cinto, then secretary of Katipunan. It was Cavite to negotiate between the Magdalo and Magdiwang faction. The letters were written on March 8, April 15, and April 24, 1897, just a few weeks before Bonifacio died. Emilio Cinto was an eloquent and fearless young man who was renowned as a soul of brain of Andres Bonifacio revolutionary organization. The Katipunan Jacinto ended the war for Filipino independence from the Spain during his brief life in Day of Katipunan. They have a code, and this code is a life is not a dedicated to noble and realistic goal is a shade tree is not a toxic weed or to it is not virtue to the will for the sake of personal gain rather than for its own sake. And the main point of Emilio Sino, unlike the nationalistic poet, the rebellious Rizal, who wanted to reform the Spanish rule in the Philippines, Bonifacio advocated complete independence from Spain. In 1892, he founded the Katipunan in Manila, modeling its organization and ceremony on the Masonic order. Next is introductory essay from the American period and the Philippines. The Philippines was colonized by the United States for 48 years. It began with the Spain 1898 cessions of the Philippines to the United States and lasted until the United States recognized Philippines independence in 1946. The Spain surrendered the entire Philippine archipelago to the United States for 20 million after the ending of the Spanish-American War in December 1908. A new colonial rule was in charge of the Philippines. The U.S. had acquired the colony in size of Arizona, 4,000 miles across the Pacific. In economic terms, American colonial rule in the Philippines promoted an intensely dependent export economy based on cash crop, agriculture, and extractive industries like mining and mutual defense. Treaty of 1951 binds the United States and the Philippines together as treaty allies. And the Philippines is the United States' oldest security partner in Southeast Asia, as well as one of the five treaty allies in the Pacific in mutual defense. Treaty of 1951 binds the United States, the Philippines together as treaty allies. The Philippines is the United States' oldest security partner in Southeast Asia, as well as one of the five treaty allies in the Pacific. In the Philippines, uh, largest export market and 30th largest supplier, also known as semiconductors and computers, wireless vehicle parts, electricity and machinery, textile and garments with the animals feeds and coconut oil are also major export for the United States. The next is the Executive Mansion, Washington, on December 21, 1898. On December 21, 1898, President Lincoln issues by benevolent assimilation proclamation which outlined his colonizing policies in the Philippines, and after the treaty was signed, President McLean issued the benevolent assimilation proclamation which state that the military government in Manila would be extended to all of the Philippine Islands, and that the United States government would take over the Spanish government shoveling over the Manqui signs the benevolent assimilation proclamation in 1898. President Lincoln issued the benevolent assimilation proclamation December 28, 1898, which was announced in the Philippines mission saying Philippine war should never be taken into the until every means of peace failed. The more deeply we study this beautiful book and the more closely we adopt its holy principle, the better citizen will be become. And the higher our destiny as a nation will be. Welcome, Mikey is a Spanish American. Atrasimikan, and he rejected the expansionary military policy of the free silver, keeping the US on gold in standard.